I'm just out here in my shed. Told you. People think I'm joking when I'm like, yeah, I do most of my lives from a shed. It's the only place I can get any quiet. But, anyways, I've got the Black Hawk Down, not what happened recently, but Battle of Mogadishu, Operation Gothic Serpent, just about wrapped up. As far as posting order and whatnot, I'll tell you, that whole ordeal has got to be one of the most chaotic military operations that took place. And that is because of getting the information and the timeline sorted and how many different units were all involved in it is what makes it so crazy. I mean, you've got um, before any of those events even took place in Mogadishu, you had the Navy SEALs who went in, and what they do is they search for water mines, land mines, anything like that before there's an amphibious assault. Then once that's done, then the Marines amphibious assault, the Marine Unit 29, um, basically they took the entire beaches of the area of, near Mogadishu, took the airport, and took other points of interest. The Marine Force, the difference between them and United States Army, the Marines are fast. We rely on speed. That's why they train. They train hard, and the Marine Corps, doesn't. It's not as big as the Army's infantry, obviously, but it's effective because of its speed. The Army has the airborne units and things like that, which are effective as well, and mobilization and whatnot. So you have the Marines go in and they take the Air Force or the airport there in Mogadishu. They take the beaches. You fast forward. You've got there was conflict going on before the day of the big raid, October 3rd, 1993. Uh, there were, of course, it was the United Nations. They were delivering aid, food, everything like that. There's huge civil war and famine in Somalia at the time. Uh, you know, Basically, these warlords, what they were doing is they were taking all the food and the aid because they were controlling the food and the aid so they could control the people. Um, you fast forward, some other attacks and people had gotten killed. Finally, the United States said, you know what, we're not dealing with your bullshit anymore, guys. Let's go in and get Muhammad Ayyad. And we'll send the Delta Force operators and operator. It would be Task Force Ranger for Operation Gothic Serpent. Now, what's crazy about this is you've got this operation. So you've already had the United States Navy, you've already had the Marine Corps, you have Army Rangers, the 75th Reg, 3rd Battalion. You had United States Special Forces Mountain 10, I believe, something like that. They're there. You have Delta. You have the 160 Night Stalkers or SOAR. There was still another Navy SEAL element. I haven't got a whole lot of information on that as to a lot of this stuff happening. These are all elite units. That a lot of these people follow the quiet professional. And what that is basically is for instance, with the Bin Laden raid or any of these like the Lone Survivor or Captain Phillips or any of these types of things that we've seen going on in the news, and you have a few different Navy SEALs who have came out and wrote books about it, stuff like that, or whatnot. Well, it's kind of frowned upon in a lot of these guys' circles to do that. However, with Black Hawk Down, there are a bunch of accounts, but they're not exactly the most detailed. So timelining it and putting it all together is insane. But before even the Black Hawk, got shot down, the first one, chaos was already ensuing. You had armed militias. You had this warlord who actually watched how we operated because Delta was running operations before October 3rd. They were trying to hit this guy and try to get as many of his lieutenants as possible. Uh, Basically, him watching that and seeing, the United States, these guys, speed is one of the main things. They might not know the land here, but they have speed, and it's hard to mobilize against speed if you don't have anything to combat with it. Uh, when they were fast roping in on the day of the raid, you had Private First Class Todd Blackburn. I think in the movie they show the RPG fly and then the bird sways or whatnot as these rangers are fast roping down to the city. And he fell 70 feet, shattered a bunch of bones in his back, everything like that. So that was the first. That wasn't even the first issue though. With that Ranger Chalk, they were on super. All the birds or Blackhawks are going to be called Kalstein Super 6 and then whatever number. This one would be Kalstein Super 6-7. It was carrying Ranger Chalk 4, and that was led by Sergeant Eversman. I always say his name wrong. But anyways, that's the guy that Josh, actor dude in the movie, kind of the main one or whatever, based it on. They weren't able to fly into position to do what's called blocking, which is a perimeter around the target. Basically what would happen, Delta would fast rope in, they would go in, they would hit the target and try to hit that target package. While that's going on, the Ranger Chalks were supposed to be doing blocking around the entire block area or whatnot. You had the convoy who would be hiding behind the Olympic Hotel, who, as soon as they got the signal and they snatched the lieutenants, killed or captured, whatever, they would drive up and then they would extract and then they would take off. Ranger Chalk 4 wasn't able to land in there. This place is incredibly dusty. It's filthy. There's not very much room. Buildings are built very close together. So they had to actually land off about 2 blocks, further up. The pilot asked them, hey, do you want me to take you back over by the hotel now that these guys are all gone? They said, no, we'll just fast rope here. That's when RPGs started flying. There was also small arms being shot on the ground. And with all that chaos that ensued, you had Blackburn, who had fallen out of the chopper. You had, Staff Sergeant Stryker, who was leading the convoy he was one of the convoy people. He broke 3 trucks off from the original convoy of 12, went over to pick up Blackburn, take him back to base to get him so he could be medically evacuated. So that was another brave thing. They took on a lot of fire. The first casualty actually happened in that 3-truck convoy because they were all light-skinned and just in regular Humvees. There was no armor. Now, before the whole operation even took place, here's the thing that really irritates the living shit out of me, and that is when the politicians don't listen to the military about what they actually need asset-wise, equipment-wise, and whatnot to perform certain operations and to do things. From what I was reading and from different accounts and interviews, I've been going through quite a bit on all this, man. It is a crazy rabbit hole. Guys were loading sandbags up and sticking them up against the walls inside their Humvees just to armor it because they were so light-skinned. And unfortunately, that's Sergeant Pila. He was the first casualty. He got hit as they were driving back to get to the airport to get Blackburn there. So you have that issue. Now all of that right there, what that did, that stalled Ranger Chalk 4 from getting over to the other 3 chalks, securing that perimeter area. Basically, with this taking place, you had the other Blackhawks. They were flown a block or 2 away and waiting because they were going to pick up some of the guys from Delta and some of the Rangers after they had already grabbed the target and the convoy was off. Some were flying overhead protecting it. They also had smaller birds that were doing gun runs the entire time too. But you've got, I don't even remember how many hundreds of people, but just gathering right around these target areas, making it difficult for anybody on the ground to move. You've got small arms fire going off. They hit Blackhawk Super 6-1, which was that was one of the Super 6-1 and Super 6-2 were the ones carrying the Delta operators performing the raid. Super 6-2 had Gary Gordon, Paul Shugart, or not Paul Shugart, sorry, Randall Shugart, flying overhead, in sniper position, providing aerial coverage for anybody in the area or whatnot. That they play a huge role in it. Their part of this story is the part that gets me. I almost get teary-eyed every time I read about it or hear about these 2 men. I mean, it's just like the ultimate acts of valor they did. Just amazing. Now, one of the best accounts would be let's see here, Sergeant Major Paul Howie of Delta. This dude is like the best leader. His mentality, I love this guy. I love hearing all of his interviews, hearing how he talks, just everything about this guy. He's fucking hard, but he's one of those types of leaders that would push people to get to the best that they can possibly be to their ability, and he wasn't afraid to tell a politician to shut the hell up if need be. He made some great points in his interviews and stuff. He was on the assault team, him and Tom Satterly. I'm sure you guys are familiar with, if you've ever watched any of the Sean Ryan interviews. Tom Satterly's been in on that. He's been on Mike Ritlin. Paul Howie, there's a lot of things he won't go into detail on, but there's a lot that he does. And one thing that he did speak about, though, is that the organization, the issue, they had one radio frequency they were all operating on. You've got 4 Ranger Chalks that are going to have, anywhere between, let's see, fire teams usually about four people. Ranger Chalks, 4 to 8, 4 to 6, whatever. All these people are on the same radio frequency. You have a convoy of 12 trucks all on the same radio frequency. You have command on the same frequency, and you have multiple birds flying around on the same frequency. So communication was getting jacked up because they were over jamming the radios. There was a bunch of lieutenants who had never had any combat training or even, had no clue, asked from their elbow on what they were doing as well in this whole situation. But from what he was saying, it got to the point where he just finally told people on the radio, shut the hell up, one person at a time, because it's delaying them, and that delay in that time frame is what cost some of these men their lives. Black Hawk Super 6-1 got hit, dropped down. As soon as that happened, the mission became calling the Caesars team, which is the Combat Search and Rescue. Military loves acronyms. Get them out there over to this place, try to get the people, whoever were in that wreckage, whatnot, evacuated, protected, and secured. That's where it started to go downhill even further. So you have Super 6A, which carried a bunch of the Air Force PJs, had the search and rescue team. They went down, they fast roped. As soon as they got to the ground, that bird got hit. However, luckily it flew off. It was able to land back at base. You had a smaller bird come down, grab some of the people that were dead, some of the other people in the crew that were still injured and still breathing and moving. But I mean, like, you just look at it, like, everything that could go wrong, this was like Murphy's Law. And, you have all these elite top tier, operators doing all of this. I mean, like the 160 Night Stalkers, those pilots, they're as badass as it gets. I mean, these guys, just incredible. Like reading about the training and how their operations that they do. So you get to that point. You have Super 6-4, which is Mike Durant, he was the one that was a POW. He's flying around because he's trying to hopefully get to a point where he can evacuate people while he's waiting for this to take place. He gets hit. He goes down clear, probably a good 6 blocks away from everybody else, while everybody else is going over to crash site 1. He's all on his own over here. He was the only surviving member of the crew, but he had busted a disc in his back and his femur, I believe. He couldn't walk or move, and he was pinned in the cockpit. Now, this is where Master Sergeant Gordon and Sergeant First Class Randall Sugar step in. They're flying overhead, covering for people. They flew over that crash site, number 2. They were up there and doing an aerial. Well, there's a huge horde of Somalia militia heading towards that area. You're a sniper and you're up top. Yeah, you can take out some shots. They have their door gunner who, is also able to take people out. But if there's people down there, it'd be easier to protect and defend and secure them until they can be evacuated on foot. Now, it was only 2 of them. They only had small arms. One of them had a CAR-15, which is in the M16 family. It was just a shortened barrel, usually about a 10.5 inch. It was, right around before M4s were really starting to come out or in development or whatnot. You had Randall Sugar, who was on the M14, which was an interesting rifle, battle weapon to pick. But they inserted in, they went down, they fought for 40 minutes. Both of them ended up dying, knowing damn well they were going to die. But before they inserted, they had asked for permission to be inserted from command 3 times before command finally said, okay, go for it. You guys know this is your call. You know what the odds are probably going to be. And both of them said, let's go. No hesitation, not even thinking about it. Got there. They wanted to make sure that crew was protected or whatnot. Unfortunately, they were both killed in action. From what the estimates say, I mean, they're different on different accounts, but the individuals, they said that those two had probably killed between 60 and 70 Somalians, just those two, defending that crash site, and probably wounded another 70. And the horde just got to the point they ran out of ammunition, and that's how they ended up dying, unfortunately. Mike Durant, chief warrant officer who survived, he was the pilot. He was the first POW that the United States had since Vietnam. Now, Randall Sugar and Gary Gordon, the reason why another reason why getting down to that crash site was so important, and it's not necessarily just the fact to protect if anybody's alive, but it's also to protect the bodies of the people that have been killed. And the reason is what exactly happened to both of them, and it's disturbing. It's part of war, unfortunately. Rules of engagement only apply to the United States. Apparently, in this world, we're monsters if we break them, but if anybody else were to do it to us or take trophies, it's okay on their part, which is bullshit. Sugar and Gordon both got stripped down. They got dragged through the streets of Mogadishu. And I remember being a boy, watching CNN, seeing that happen, and, not knowing what's going on, seeing these people do this to people from our country and our military. And, it's something that sticks in my head. And so, like, these two, even though they're in the Army and they're not in the Marines, they've always been two men that I've always, like, really had this fascination with, the valor that they had, knowing they were going to die, but they still went. It's stuff like that, man. I don't even know how to express it emotion-wise or whatever, but you think, if I was in that situation, would I go out the same way? I mean, these guys knew damn well, their bodies would probably be mutilated. They'd probably be tortured if they weren't dead, and they didn't care. They didn't even think twice. And that's the type of people we need in the military. I hope we get back to that point. I feel like a lot of this woke shit has really just done some major damage. But it's just all these men you look and aspire to, and you just hope you can go out and do your best. You might not have a career like these men do, but and you're not going to be in the history books. You might not be, but at the same time, it got me to think, what though? I've known some guys that did some pretty amazing stuff, and granted, their stories might not be known. They may not have gotten medals of honor. They died in combat still doing. And I thought in my head, they died where they wanted to die, though. And if there was any place to go, that was the place they wanted to be when it happened. And there's a lot of people who have survivor's guilt. It's a tough thing to deal with. But at the same time, think about these great men, and think about that they died because they want you to be able to continue to live on. And, that's something that I like to share with a lot of guys who are veterans that, are going through a lot of that trauma is, if don't let them die in vain, because they died because they want people to live and pretty much, to keep moving forward in life. And it's a tragedy. And, a lot of families, the Gold Star families, my heart always goes out towards them. They're, it's sad. And it's, some of these people, it's very sad, because their kids will end up calling, a teammate or somebody who's in their platoon or flew with them or whatever, just to ask them what their dad was like, because, their dad spent more time, he was overseas fighting in wars rather than, being at home because he was deployed. But I mean, he did that for everybody, including his own kids. So, that's kind of my message today, guys. The whole Black Hawk Down thing, it's crazy, because I started doing, trying to break this whole crazy Operation Gothic Serpent down. And, a couple of days ago or whatnot, we have a airplane and a Black Hawk helicopter collide and, over U.S. soil. And I just thought that is the most bizarre, craziest thing, that could possibly happen. But anyways, that's the thoughts on the matter. Hopefully I'll get out and do a damn gun review. I apologize. I had put in my post, I was going to take that Savage Stevens little over and under shotgun out. fuck around with it, shoot some clay pigeons, do a review on it. But weather and, being a dad, man, I've got a whole house full of sick kids, hence the reason why I like coming out to the shed. But, I'll be wrapping up Operation Gothic Serpent. Um, the Medals of Honor that came from it, first ones to be given out since Vietnam, first POW since Vietnam. I've been going through the entire, timeline events and people and all the different awards people have been receiving and whatnot, because of the Battle of Mogadishu and everything along that line. And, when I get to the last episode, it's going to be cool because I'm going to do something where, tallying off how many Bronze Stars, Silver Stars with Valor, Medal of Honors, obviously, Purple Hearts, everything along that line for all the people that committed all the brave acts, people that fought through that, and even the people that they might not get mentioned in the books or the movies or in the news, but were there and did, courageous acts as well. I think, I feel like I owe it. History owes it to them. Their stories need to keep being told, even if they died in action, but they get to live on forever. And I think that's an important aspect of it because, that's, the true warriors that we have are these types of people that put it all on the line. So anyways, guys, I appreciate everybody watching this live. Yeah, you can call me cheesy or whatever. That's all good. But you enjoy your weekends. I'll do Single Shot Sunday show tomorrow morning. Take care. Enjoy your family and friends. Be safe.